Good evening, world, and welcome to another episode of A24 on the Rocks, the podcast where we watch and review every single film in the A24 library, in chronological order. As of this recording, A24 has released a total of 172 films since 2013, and we are reviewing the 81st of those films. So we still have quite long way to go. But this film is the 2019 neo-noir crime drama Under the Silver Lake. So we, at almost 50%, know that we have a long way to go, but that's kind of the fun of it, right? That's what makes it very entertaining. But I'm not alone. No, of course, because watching movies with friends is fun. You can watch movies alone, I suppose, too, but I happen to enjoy discussing them with my good friends and the merry group of movie-loving misfits, Eric, Dan, and Becky. Say hi to the people. Tell them what you're drinking on this most auspicious of occasions.
I'm drinking, I was thinking what could be very LA that I could bring out tonight that is also a mocktail, and so I am drinking a virgin daiquiri, a strawberry virgin daiquiri with frozen strawberries, lime juice, and ice, and it's very good.
That's very LA of you. Yeah, absolutely. How about you guys? What do you got going on over there in Bolivia land?
We are drinking a lovely homemade limeade, but sounds simple, not so simple here. Dan?
Yeah, so we were thinking about, we're trying to bring some Bolivia facts about everything. And for this, we live in the tropics, so there's lots of citrus. We get pretty much any fruit. But there are so many different types of citrus here, and they're all called limon. Every one of them is a fucking limon, but some of them you think that they should be sour and they're actually sweet, and then the ones that you think should be sweet are actually sour. So trying to find an actual Meyer lemon or a regular green lime can be kind of challenging. And there's so many times that we've bought a bag of something. I'm like, I'm gonna make this into limeade, and we get home, I cut it. I'm like, shit, this is not lime. So tonight we actually have real limeade in our glass, and it is delicious.
Oh, fantastic.
Let's go, girls.
That's that Becky's Now introduction every single time.
I wanted to do that right after Becky said her drink, but I guess you shared drinks tonight, so well, I still got it in there.
We share everything. We share a business,
right.
We share a house, we share a life, Eric, okay?
Oh my gosh, how cute.
I guess women just don't have any individuality after they get married, Dan.
Feel like a woman.
I mean, it could be that he's taking my individuality and I'm the one who's the individual and he's just latching on to me.
Wait, so he's taking it?
Ooh. Anyway, we're getting a little off the rails here.
That sounded actually worse.
And as our listeners probably know by now, my name is Kevin K. Konkonachek, and I am drinking a THC seltzer tonight. That's right, I have foregone the alcohol and have joined the... I won't call you sober, but those people over there, they're not drinking booze tonight. This THC seltzer comes from Kelly's Greens here in Wauwatosa, Wisconsin. It's got 10 milligrams of THC and CBD in it. So I'm ready to rock and roll with that bad boy.
A24 on the rocks.
But as I mentioned in the intro, we are reviewing Under the Silver Lake, which is a neo-noir mystery thriller directed by David Robert Mitchell, released in 2018. Fans may recognize David Robert Mitchell as the director of the 2014 critically acclaimed horror film It Follows, which we did an episode on back in October of last year, so go check that out. Really, really good film. We all loved it. I was blown away by it. So when I heard that David Robert Mitchell was also responsible for this, I was interested, to say the least. The film delves into themes of obsession, conspiracy, and the hidden undercurrents of Los Angeles. All right. Anyway, first question. Had anyone seen this before viewing this? Anybody?
No.
No, had not. Nope, had never heard of it.
Right. So, Eric, you had told me that this film is an A24 fan favorite. Did you know anything else about it before going in, other than that's what you had heard about it ahead of time?
That's about it. Yeah, I mean, I just know it was a very LA film. Guess I just saw it on the A24 film group on Facebook. A lot of people have tried to dissect and discuss this film. And I stayed away from the spoilers, thankfully.
Yeah. As doing my research after the fact, ahead of this recording, there's a lot out there. There's a lot of discussion, there's a dedicated subreddit just to this film and trying to dissect all the different parts and pieces to it. So needless to say, there's a lot out there. So yeah, avoiding that was pretty critical going in. So let's get into the story a little bit. I do not want to do a scene by scene for this film. I think it would take too long, and it's just got too many twists and shoots. And I really want to get some deep discussions and debates. But for our listeners who may not have seen this, or at the very least to provide some context, here's kind of a brief rundown. The story follows Sam, played by Andrew Garfield, a disenchanted and aimless 33-year-old man living in Los Angeles. His mundane life takes a strange turn when he notices Sarah, played by Riley Keough, a mysterious woman swimming in his apartment complex's pool. After a brief encounter, Sarah mysteriously vanishes, leaving behind her shoe and a sense of intrigue. So now, driven by curiosity and obsession, Sam embarks on a quest to find Sarah. His investigation leads him through the underbelly of Los Angeles, exposing a labyrinth of secret societies, hidden symbols, and conspiracy theories prevalent in a celebrity culture and the city's shadowy corners. As he digs deeper, he uncovers a series of cryptic clues hinting at the larger, interconnected world of secret messages, coded references, and influential power players. So, to my lovely panelists out there, I think we got to strap in, get your hot takes ready, and let's break this bad boy down. Dan, right away, what are your first impressions as we open up Under the Silver Lake? Did it hook you? Did it take some time to draw you in? Were you never drawn in? We're talking about first impressions here.
Truthfully, I don't feel like I ever really got drawn into the film, and I have a lot to say about that. But from the beginning, it seemed interesting to me in those first 5 or 10 minutes. I was really like, okay, where is this going to go? You get this very, I think we'll say it a lot, but this very Lynchian style, right? This very like David Lynch, sort of like these really stilted dialogues and these weird moments. And I liked the cinematography at the beginning. I thought that the camera work and the lighting was pretty cool to start the film. But there was nothing there that particularly drew me in other than the fact that I was like, what is this, right? So I guess I had that question of kind of like, what is this going to be and where is this going to go? Because like Eric, I tried to avoid pretty much anything. I knew a little tiny bit about it before I watched it, but I tried to avoid really anything about it. So, I guess I had the intrigue of kind of like, where is this going to go? Who is this guy? And like, why is he creepily watching women out of his window? And then like, there's just a girl that shows up his door and they have sex. And then there's somebody else asking him about masturbating. And there's like all this like weird sexual tension from the beginning. So it definitely sets the tone of just the weirdness to come in the film. But I wouldn't say there was anything that particularly hooked me at the beginning.
All right. So Becky, same kind of question. What was your gut reaction to the film's style and tone as we kind of get moving?
It was hard for me to focus on it at first because I did get super distracted by the woman cleaning the window and looking like she's trying to scrub it off, but the window is perfectly clean except for beware the dog killer. But she's standing there scrubbing it and nothing is happening. And I was a little distracted by that because you could see it in the background through the whole opening. All that I knew coming into this film was that it was supposed to be fairly surreal. And I did feel like that some of the camera work in the opening scenes where like the camera sped up where nobody else did and some of the quicker movements coming through, I did like that kind of set that starting tone. But I didn't really take a whole lot from this beginning at all.
That's fair. And Eric, I would be remiss if I didn't ask you the same thing as a lover of good cinematography and, the importance of getting kind of your hook in right away. Where were you after our first 5-10 minutes of the film?
A lot of Hitchcock references everywhere. I think that this film is is very inspired from Vertigo. And our main character reminded me a lot of John Ferguson in Vertigo, who Jimmy Stewart plays. And in Vertigo, our main character is very creepy and weird. And I think back in the 50s, it didn't seem like he was as creepy as weird because that was just normal for men back then to be that creepy and weird. But then you put it in a modern day like setting And this guy's, he's a bit of a creep. And I was here for it, though, because I think it was trying to put Hitchcock in the modern day. And also, I really like Andrew Garfield. He is a very sexy man.
I mean, let's talk about Andrew Garfield, right? So Andrew Garfield plays this paranoid kind of drifting protagonist. How effective was his performance? We can talk about the whole thing right here. And did you find his character relatable, alienating? Was it on purpose the way that they were making him as misogynistic as it was, or the way that he was kind of, he wasn't a character that you felt for really a lot of empathy, right? You weren't really rooting for him. But let's talk about Andrew Garfield. Dan, go ahead. Talk about the sexy man.
I think the idea of him being a drifter was done very well. I think his sort of ambivalence towards life really, really came out throughout the whole film. He doesn't even bat an eye when everybody's asking him how work's going and he's lying because he's not working. He's like, yeah, no, it's fine. Everything's good. Talks to his mom, pretends like everything is okay, while at the same time he's got a cigarette hanging out of his mouth, staring through binoculars at women around his apartment. And so he's clearly, I don't know, to me it struck me a little bit as somebody just out of college and not knowing what to do with their life, but in a much darker way. And someone who maybe has been beat down throughout life and through that time. And I think that aspect of it came through pretty well.
Yeah, absolutely. Dan, what were your impressions of Mr. Garfield, his performance, and kind of the character in general?
I found the character in general to be pretty annoying, honestly. I think he personified a lot of the sort of conspiracy, and I know that's the whole idea of the film, but the sort of conspiracy theory down the rabbit hole, like one step away from, the people that helped put Donald Trump in the White House, for as far as I'm concerned. So I find that kind of person quite off-putting. And I also found it hard to I think purposefully to connect with him in any way, or really to understand what was going on. Like, you had to piece it together, right? So he might get evicted, right? But then I'm like, okay, so he can't afford to pay for his house, but he's got a Mustang. But then that resolves itself, which as a scene I would like to talk about at some point with the kids. But I mean, his actual performance was, it was very flat, but that's kind of the point. So, I mean, he was kind of emotionless unless he was like enraged and smashing people's heads. And just, I found the dialogue kind of stilted, and I found his talent as an actor was somewhat wasted in this role because it was so driven by the plot that like he didn't really get a chance to be any other thing than like the guy who was like driving this weird surreal plot. So I felt like he was kind of trapped within that, and he was more a device of the plot than he was an actual character in the story, if that makes sense. Like, he was just the person driving forward this kind of absurd story. So I think he acted okay in that regard, but I found his character and that idea and really all the characters in the movie just kind of pointless. So yeah, I didn't get anything, stupendous
Eric,
from him.
Do you agree with Dan's assessment of not just Andrew Garfield's performance, but the character itself? Did he bore you? Were you interested in what was going to happen?
But he is definitely a pervert, and he reminds me of a way more aggressive version of the Dude. He's a slacker in LA. Instead of like the Dude in The Big Lebowski, things are constantly happening to him, and he's not asking for any of it. He hates that it's all happening to him. But in this movie, our main character, Sam, is searching for trouble and conspiracy. And I think he is supposed to represent a lot of aimless millennial men. The reason he's a pervert, I think very early on in the movie, it touches on how pop culture affects people. And they went through that little montage of sexually subliminal messaging. And I think this movie is trying to ask, like, is this guy this way because of the pop culture that, was given to him so some rich asshole could make $1? Is he just a result of the pop culture that was, fed to him? Or is he doing this on his own? And I don't think you're supposed to like the guy at all. He's very much an anti-hero. Yeah. And there's also that scene where they were playing, him and Topher Grace were playing video games. And Topher Grace was like, we crave mystery because there's none left. And it's kind of like this thought that in our current generation, millennials especially, the world has been explored, discovered, and there's not a lot of mystery left in the world. And so we live through like video games, pop culture, and everything, so we could try to live out mystery in those spaces. And that's also why our main character is so obsessed with old, like he has the old Nintendo. He likes old music. He likes old movies. And I think these are things that comforted him when he was little, and so he's still obsessed with them. And I think it's like very much a character who's stunted too, and he constantly thinks there's more going on to life and around him when there really isn't. And that's kind of a big point of the film, I think, too.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. I think that he's definitely not supposed to be liked, as we're kind of going throughout his film from his, personality standpoint. Just like the things that he was doing was definitely grimy and considered, pretty off-putting in general. I echo all of the same things you guys said when it comes to just kind of the way that the film presented him in general. But I guess the stylistic approach to some of the, scenes and the way that they made him as a character, I guess. And plus, I'm biased because I like Andrew Garfield. So I've, thoroughly enjoyed his performance, even though, like Dan said, he really is all of the film. Like, you take him out, really don't have much else. He really is the driving force, for better or for worse, I guess. But you were referencing there, Eric, the pop culture, right? And this film is absolutely packed with pop culture. Old Hollywood references, conspiracy theories, hidden codes. Becky, do you think that these layers added depth or distraction to our film?
Honestly, I think a little bit of both, which is, I feel like, going to be my answer a lot throughout this discussion. But I feel like it added depth because it is something that I at least see all the time as a school teacher. Nobody has their own individuality right now anymore because everybody has to follow the latest trends, the top people, and there are very few people who have a true difference of opinion in terms of what they like and what they enjoy. And I think the way that the film portrayed this can I talk about the man with the Music Man? And this one major figure in pop culture creating everything and telling you exactly what it is you're supposed to like. And I think that is the definition a bit of pop culture. And so I think this film handled it well, from the Spice Girls to classic rock. Throughout the ages, he's playing all these tunes of songs that everybody knows. And the idea of one entity controlling that, I think, strikes pretty true to the heart, because we are incredibly influenced through media, and our likes and our dislikes are very heavily driven through what we absorb in various media formats. But I do think that it was a little bit distracting, not for the pop culture side, but through the violence that it asked for in the movie. Because anytime we had this pull towards conforming to what everybody is supposed to do, it was almost always followed up with a scene of pretty significant violence thereafter. And so the violence distracted me from it, but the hitting on the control of people's minds through media struck close to home.
I don't think it's lost on me that this film came out right after the Me Too movement too, and when I saw that Music Man scene, I just thought to myself, like, some of my favorite films of the last 40 years were put out by Miramax, which Harvey Weinstein owned, and the Weinstein Company. Although he wasn't the one literally creating all those films, he funded it, greenlit it, and got them out there. It gives you like this weird feeling, like, for example, Pulp Fiction, one of my favorite films of all time, but put out by Miramax, and it made all this money and influenced a lot of people, but who ended up making the most money off of that? Harvey Weinstein, right? And so it's kind of this thought, like, all of your favorite pop culture pieces probably were, like, happened because some rich asshole wanted to make $1 who couldn't give a shit about the emotional, like, aspects of the piece of media that you enjoyed. They were just putting it out there to make $1. Sumner Redstone, the owner of CBS and Paramount, another gigantic asshole who has been exposed for like sexual harassment and assault. he put out some of the best movies of the last, like, 100 years, like Paramount did, I mean. And all of that money that people gave to those movies then ended up in his pocket eventually. And that's what that, like, scene, I think, the Piano Man scene thought to me, where that's what I thought it was commenting on. Not that there's literally some ghostwriter making everything, but
Right.
that, yeah.
Okay, that's an interesting
it
take.
all ends up in the pocket of some rich asshole, basically.
I kept thinking that I felt like this film got in its own way so much. And part of it was that I think there was so much ambition here to kind of like not only, you know, show the dark side of conspiracy and, you know, people that fall down these rabbit holes, but then to take on, you know, the backdrop of Los Angeles. It's almost like LA was a character itself, right? And so it was like trying to take on all this pop culture stuff and seem very deep, but I think it got in its own way by trying to do too much with that story. And also, like, I felt it very trite because I feel like there's nothing really new or extraordinary there. Like, we know that the media manipulates us. We know that the things that we listen to and watch and, you know, this manufactured consent and this manufactured popularity, like, you know, I said to Becky at one point, I was like, this is something that I would have talked about with my friends when I was 16 and getting high in someone's basement, right? So I didn't feel like it was reaching for this like grand, you know, idea of all this corruption and the opulence and the sort of fakeness of these LA cultures. And I think it just got in its own way there. It was just so much of it. It was layered so heavily. And it's like the Music Man thing, the movie confused me tonally too, because it's like all of a sudden you have this like, you know, crescendo with the Music Man, and then he's bashing the guy's face in with Kurt Cobain's guitar. And it's like, why? Like this, you know, grotesque violence after this like realization of things. I guess that's his anger, his frustration. Maybe it's supposed to be our shared anger. Right. Maybe it's supposed to be our, you know, shared anger or frustration.
That's the surreal aspect of it.
I found the whole...
Is that fake? You know?
Sure. But I found the whole movie to be very confused tonally. And I think that that moment for me was like the biggest of it. It's like, you know, trying to find all this meaning and all this stuff and just ram it all into 2 hours that already felt too long. And I found that stuff really a little bit too on the nose and just, kind of missed the mark for me.
Well, I would say in the end, though, wouldn't you say that this movie is trying to say that conspiracies are not that interesting? Like, he finds the big conspiracy that, like, or where the conspiracy was going to lead him, and it was just like some rich asshole with like 3 girls that's about to get buried in a tomb. Like, a completely dumb fucking thing to do. And I think in the end, what our main character takes away is that, like, okay, all these conspiracies, like, they probably have some stupid reason behind them that isn't actually that interesting. And there's a certain, like, nihilism to the film, I think.
I think so, too.
I think the entire theme of it is nihilism. Yeah.
Well, and I think, Eric, to your point, I think that is made actually much stronger, because there's one point, I can't remember where it came up in the movie, but you know, Andrew Garfield is walking with the daughter of the rich guy who was quote unquote murdered, but is actually hiding out in his tomb of a bunker, and walking down the street. And she asks him something along the lines of, well, if somebody is capable of killing a dog, wouldn't you think they'd be just as capable of killing a person? And he pretty much immediately just goes, no, I think those are 2 different things. And I think that's adding to Eric's point in that priorities are a little bit mixed up here. We want to find the answer to this mystery, but at the same time, we are all freaking out about a dog killer. And how many murders happen in LA every year?
Well, I think that's the other part, too, is I think that the dog killer is just an allegory as well. I think that those dogs are actually women, and that's the story of Hollywood killing women and being responsible for the death of many women. And we talk about, Eric, you talked about that already with the Harvey Weinstein thing. I mean, we're talking, I think personally that this is David Robert Mitchell and Andrew Garfield's own actual opinion on Hollywood. And Andrew Garfield has famously had an axe to grind with big Hollywood. I mean, he was Spider-Man for 2 seasons about 2 full movies, and because of his struggles with the big Hollywood executives as far as things that he wasn't comfortable doing, and the direction of he stepped out of that limelight and was derided a lot because of that performance, based on whether that was true or not doesn't matter. I think that this is part of their story, that they have something to tell about Hollywood, and they're finding a way to do it. Whether it was done perfectly or not, that's clearly what we're having a debate for. But there is, a lot of what feels like real life stuff in here, even though the commentary is that people who take that real life stuff, we're talking about conspiracies, too far, kind of just get off the rails.
I was just going to say, Kevin, I think in that way, it's sort of hearing you say that, it makes me think even more that it's like they had that huge axe to grind, and it's like, can we just take everything that makes us angry and everything we think is wrong and just ram it into one storyline, right? And so back to, I think, my point of that, I felt like it got in its own way. It's like there was so much that they were trying to say that it kind of loses all meaning, because I said to Becky, I'm like, you could throw anything at the wall and start saying, oh, it looks like this. I think about 9/11 and the devil's face in the smoke as one of the towers collapsed. And it's like everyone wants to see something that isn't there. So it's like all of these layers lose me, because you can start reading into anything because they're just throwing so much at you.
Well, that goes back to what I was saying, though, is that in the end, he figures out that there isn't some gigantic conspiracy. I think he is just like, I think this film isn't confused. I think it says exactly what it wants to say, and I can figure out what it's wanting to say. I think the question for me is it too self-indulgent? Could they have cut 30 minutes off the film to make the same point? I think so, yeah.
I think we're all agreeing that it is a little self-indulgent. It does feel that way.
Yeah, I don't think it's confused, and I don't think that, I think the conspiracies like that this millennial character was searching for, in the end, he just figures out, wait, there's, nothing that interesting about all of this. So
Eric,
I think it makes a good point, though.
A comparison to one of your favorite films with this character, and Andrew Garfield has kind of described this guy as kind of a West Coast slacker, Travis Bickle from Taxi Driver. Do you think there's anything to that as far as kind of the way that they're making, him is as a character?
No, I don't think he's a Travis Bickle, no. Okay. I mean, I guess he's violent, but he is not trying to kill the mayor, some guy running for mayor of the city, or
he's trying
anybody.
To protect a woman, though, right? He's trying to, go and save some girl from a ill fate.
He is actually just curious, like, what happened to her, though. I don't know if because he is too narcissistic to actually be going after her to actually try to save her from whatever danger she may have befallen.
Yeah,
I think he is trying to save her because of his own, like, curiosity and belief that there is something more happening everywhere that he isn't a part of. And I think he has a narcissism about him that is true amongst a lot of millennial men.
Yeah. He's trying to clean up the streets, though.
I just want to say I agree wholeheartedly with the fact that it's not at all about this woman. What's her, Sarah? Is that her name, right? Mm-hmm. It's not at all about wanting to protect a woman, to find a woman because he thinks he might love the woman or like the woman. She is a piece of the puzzle of the mystery, and it's the mystery and the search for meaning that is driving him. And he doesn't know what that meaning is. We don't know what that meaning is, but she is not a person. She is an object in this. And I think women were portrayed as objects, different types of objects throughout the whole film, but every single woman was portrayed as an object in some sort of way.
Yeah, and men do this often, is they project what's missing in their own life onto women and think that they're going to solve it all for them. And I think that's what our main character is doing. But I think our writer-director is pretty aware of the main character he's created too, though.
Yeah, I think so.
I agree that I do think that she was more of an idea. It wasn't really about her as a person. It was more about his desires and his ideas. And I was trying to think, I didn't really get Taxi Driver vibes. I was thinking a little bit since then about the movie Nightcrawler. and a little bit of that like idea of media manipulation, right? The dark LA, drabness, and I mean different films, but taking on a similar idea, right? Of how media manipulates and changes and controls things. So maybe a little bit of that, but no, I agree with Eric. A little bit of the dude going on there, a little bit of Big Lebowski and this sort of chain of events that you can't really control, but like he's actively searching for them where the dude was not. But yeah, I think that in many ways it was to me like that the women like were objectified to further his sort of view of the world, right? It was like within his narrow scope of the world, that's really all that they were, because all he was focused on was solving whatever this mystery was. He didn't care about anyone or anything else, really.
And if he wasn't so focused on trying to have sex with Sarah in the room there, he actually would have noticed that on the wall there was a poster of the movie How to Marry a Millionaire, and then the movie they were actually watching was also How to Marry a Millionaire. So if he wasn't so just focused on trying to have sex with her, he would have noticed these things and would have noticed, kind of what the landlord said, like, hey, you ever think maybe, she doesn't like you because you're broke and you're about to be homeless and maybe you smell a bit? And I don't know, he doesn't think that. He thinks there's some gigantic conspiracy behind it.
That is interesting to me. Like, so let's talk about this a little bit. So the difference between the surrealism and like what is reality, we had already talked about a little bit earlier. Like Eric, you mentioned, does he actually kill the Music Man? Is the Music Man real? Is that a surreal fever dream of some sort? We get other blending of these maybe real, maybe not real moments throughout this film. And is that just the way that the writer and director and the creative team just was like, let's put this together? Like, let's talk about that a little bit. What do we feel about this blending of this noir and surrealism, satire? Did it work? Was it disjointed? Tell me more. Anybody?
I think that the Music Man scene, that was like, they were trying to make a point there. But I don't know if that was actually a dream or not. So there were points where I was confused on if like this was dreaming or not. But there was that scene where Sarah pretty much recreates Marilyn Monroe's scene in Something's Gotta Give near the pool. It's like I knew that was a dream, and then other times I didn't. And I generally actually don't like when a film is constantly living between dream and reality, which is, I'm not like the biggest David Lynch fan, because I find it a bit of a cheap cop-out to always just be like, hey, was this a dream? Was it not? I don't know. I'm just being surreal. And I think Wizard of Oz did that in the 1930s, and people have been just trying to copy and recreate it ever since. So I'm kind of sick of it. But besides that, though, I think that I liked some of the surreal aspects to this film. Some worked and some didn't, which is probably also my general feeling about the film, too. So, yeah.
There you go. Same question to you guys as far as the comment on the surreal versus the reality and the blending of both, and kind of how you felt throughout the film while watching it.
Yeah, no, it kind of broke this film for me, because I had too many moments of going, wait, what the fuck? Now the women are barking, so we're making that true connection between the women and the dog killer, right? Okay, that was easy enough to catch on to, but too many moments that pulled me out of the immersive feel that I want out of a movie, because I was like, wait, what the fuck was that? What just happened? What's going on here? And it broke the fourth wall for me. I would prefer it to be much more seamless, and for me to end the movie questioning, wait, what was real and what wasn't? And I would rather be questioning that at the end of the movie than having sharp jolts out of the movie because of it.
And I think, I enjoy magical realism. One thing I was thinking of, and this is kind of silly, but the book and the movie Holes, right? And like the magical realism there of like, there is definitely grounded in reality, right? But, the magical lizards and stuff, there's this aspect. Or I thought about Fargo, specifically the series Fargo, right? And there are supernatural, surreal elements that run through a show that is otherwise quite grounded, right? But there's connections that are made. There's the sort of, alien manipulation idea that and things that would happen that are supernatural, but in a very grounded way. And I feel like this was too surreal for me. And Eric, I agree. I'm not a huge David Lynch fan. I think about Twin Peaks, right? And it's just a hard series to get through. And this movie, I think, would compare a lot to Mulholland Drive, which I haven't seen in probably 20 years. But I kind of remember, maybe it would be different now that I'm not a teenager, but I remember not really, understanding or liking too much then. So I think it gets lost in a lot of that. And again, if it is trying to make these points, whether it be about the points that you think, the objectification of women and the manipulation of media, or it's just the conspiracy theories are all ridiculous, either way, it just gets really lost because, there was 2 or 3 points where I looked at Becky and I was like, is he dead? Like, is that what we're going through? Or is this a better acid trip than Climax, right? Like, is everybody just on acid? So, I was like, maybe this is a better acid trip than Climax. So, yeah, I think it was so overly used. And Eric, I agree. It's kind of a cop-out because it to me, it was like the Hair Club for Men episode of South Park and like Professor Teabag, right? Like, look closely, look more closely, and so that's what I kept thinking. I was like, this is fucking Professor Teabag. This is the Hair Club for Men. Like, St. Peter was a rabbit. So yeah, I just think it gets lost a little bit there because maybe those devices worked better. Twin Peaks, for example, was a very groundbreaking show in, I think, the late 80s. I think it's a little bit older 90s, than I am.
Yeah.
Okay, so a little younger than me then. But either way, I think it was quite groundbreaking, and it paved the way for things like X-Files, right? Which is one of my favorite shows of all time. But, the X-Files were set in the current day. They were set in a real world. It was just you had to believe what was happening. Whereas here it's like, is this world even real? They all seem like caricatures of what they're supposed to be. So maybe it's not real. And I found that really distracting.
Well, and I think to a phrase that's been brought up, or a version of the phrase, just a little desire to have it more grounded. I think the hard part is that with this main character, it cannot be grounded because he's not grounded into anything. And so while I don't like it, I do think that it was a big part of the film for it to not be grounded.
Okay, fair enough. We're going to pivot a little bit. This film has got a lot of questions, I guess, left for the viewers. There are things that are left for the viewer to try to dissect on their own. Easter eggs, you will. Morse code in certain places throughout the film, which I thought was pretty unique. There is that scene right away where after Andrew Garfield and Sarah, or Riley Keough's character, are in the room and the roommates come home and they're about to outside and the fireworks are going off. And the fireworks actually are Morse code for basically, I got it written down here somewhere now.
Ascend now.
There you go. So literally they're just adding little things in there to try to get the audience to pay attention to. There's Morse code inside the coffee shop that leads to another side piece. So it's kind of like playing on the conspiracy theory rabbit hole, the crazy lines that people put up on the walls, the Charlie Day meme of, trying to figure it out. Pepe Sylvia. Fucking Pepe Sylvia.
That right there is the mail. Now let's talk about the mail. Can we talk about the mail, please, Mac? I'm dying to talk about the mail with you all day, okay? Pepe Sylvia. This name keeps coming up over and over again. Every day, Pepe's mail's getting sent back to me. Pepe Sylvia, Pepe Sylvia. I look at the mail. Well, this whole box is Pepe Sylvia. So I say to myself, I gotta
You were so right on that, too.
I gotta put his mail in the guy's goddamn hands. Otherwise, he's never gonna get it. He's gonna keep coming back down here. So I go up to Pepe's office, and what do I find out, Mac? What do I find out? There is no Pepe Sylvia. The man does not exist, okay? So I decided, oh, shit, buddy, I gotta dig a little deeper. There's no Pepe Sylvia. You gotta be kidding me. I got boxes full of Pepe.
All right, there you go.
And who the fuck is Pepe Sylvia?
Thanks.
That was my first question when I read that name for the first time.
Listeners, go out there and do yourself a favor and
Sunny.
find Always Sunny's Philadelphia episode about Pepe Sylvia.
I thought that would get brought up, and so I actually added it to the media board.
Well, there it is. It got brought up right there. So conspiracy theories has always have been a fascination of folks. I think about even back to my childhood when you look about American Treasure, right? Is that the one with Nick Cage running around and trying to look for the
National Treasure.
clues? National
Treasure.
National Treasure. I thought that was a great film. Anyway, I don't even know if I had a question with that other than just pointing out that there's a lot of these Easter eggs. Did anyone else notice, I guess, Eric, I know you'd probably done some research afterwards and saw that these existed, like those Morse code moments and anything else. But while you were watching it in real time, did you take anything away? Were you intrigued? Did you know there was going to be questions asked afterwards? Kind of like, what were you thinking?
In real time, I definitely noticed his obsession with older films, and so I noticed The Wolfman, Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, Psycho, and so like Wolfman and Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde did make me think, wait, is he actually the dog killer? Like, is he turning into some monster at night to kill the dogs? I didn't come away with actually believing that he was doing that. I think our director wanted us to kind of like try to believe that, but you know, who knows if he actually was. And then, yeah, I guess Little Rascals was on the TV in the background at one point. I always try to figure out, like, what media people purposely put in films, because they're obviously taking inspiration from it. But, yeah, I didn't notice The Ascend Now. I didn't actually notice How to Marry a Millionaire in Sarah's bedroom. And, yeah, like, there definitely were, like, little Easter eggs everywhere. And I actually like, as opposed to when I don't like people using dreams and getting too surreal for what just, you know, seems like they're trying to confuse the audience or get the audience off kilter. I do like Easter eggs in films. I do like little things directors put in shots that make you say, like, oh, they weren't just doing that scene for no reason at all, like, or showing that wall for no reason at all. There was reasons to all of this. Like, he was trying to get every shot meaningful. And I think that is actually a mark of a good director when they try to put meaning into every shot. And so I enjoyed that part of it.
Yeah, I think I'm on your side of it when it comes to that as well. I did find that I was intrigued, at least kind of looking at how the little pieces put itself together. You know, seeing all the YouTube essays afterwards were pretty, you know, interesting to see all the little detail and effort that did get put into those things. And it's kind of like you have a little hunt on your own while watching a film about a hunt, and you know, I think that's kind of a unique.
One of my favorite YouTube, like some of my favorite YouTube channels are just movie fan theories. That's the best. Yeah, so somebody that is trying to do Pepe Sylvia, like, you see this over here, you see this over here. The coyotes, they mean something.
Oh, yeah, the coyotes. Let's talk about the coyotes a little bit. I didn't realize so much that there's actually a lot of old Native American lore and a lot of old folklore around coyotes being quite literally the mothers of the world and being responsible for a whole bunch of this stuff. And I did find that unique. I was like, oh, yeah, I had heard about that, and it kind of brought it around again. I did think that it was a little weird, the homeless king trying to connect the coyote bit. That got lost me a little bit there, but I enjoyed that aspect. So let's talk about that a little bit. Becky?
So I made the connection with the coyote because of reading the Tortilla Curtain in high school, and I don't remember a whole lot about it, but basically it's a gated community to try to keep the coyotes out. Now in the book, the coyotes are the undesirable people coming into this community, right? So coyotes 100% have had symbolic meaning throughout eras and eras of history. All the puzzles and the codes, I did not catch a lot as I was watching, which is odd for me because I love looking for shit that connects. I really do. But then when I did some reading afterwards, it actually very much irritated me just how much was in there, because this whole movie is about this mystery, and this search is pointless and it doesn't change your life and it's not going to amount to anything. But I'm going to throw every single conspiracy idea that I can into the movie to see how many people are going to watch this pointless movie and then go dig for deeper meaning where there is probably no deeper meaning. And the more that I read about it, the more that it pissed me off. It's like, you can't tell me that this search is pointless and then give me all these things to search for.
No, wait, this is very Albert Camus, though. Is the deeper meaning that there is no deeper meaning?
Yes, that is the deeper meaning. Yeah. Yes, absolutely.
Well, and that's where the homeless guy comes in, though, because the homeless people who have nothing are the ones who know the most about the world that they live in. Yeah. There's your deep meaning.
I think that it in some ways that, like, everything is a symbol thing to me plays into the pretentiousness of the film that I did feel was a definite thread in the movie. You know, it's like I said before, you can fling spaghetti at the wall and start seeing faces in anything. So it's like you could look at everything and be like, oh, and the car was red and then it was because of this and there was a red car in that and it made you think of it. Like it just, you fall down this rabbit hole and maybe that's the point, right? Because the movie is kind of meta, right? In some ways, but I think you just start assigning to everything. I thought about that, the story of the guy that hid the treasure chest in the Rocky Mountains and everybody spent like 10 years trying to find it. You know, I felt like that same thing. There was the documentary, I can't think of the name right now, but there was a documentary about it. And it's like everyone was trying to assign meaning to everything in that poem. And so it was like the real life example of that. But back to the coyotes thing, I do kind of like that as a device because it's a pretty clear one. And it made me think of Collateral, Jamie Foxx and Tom Cruise, I think it's like 2003, 2004. There's a scene where, you know, Jamie Foxx is driving Tom Cruise, like he's trying to go kill all these people. And there's this moment where everything is quiet and these two coyotes, you know, walk across the street, this desolate nighttime street in like downtown LA. And I really liked the way that was used there. So I think there is kind of that way that coyotes can play into the LA thing as well. And like I mentioned before, I feel like the city was kind of a character in and of itself in this movie. So, you know, whatever that's worth.
Why do we think that this film is such a hit or miss for folks? It's a 50-some% on Rotten Tomatoes for both the critic and the fan
audience.
So it's like quite literally one out of, you know, you either love it or you hate it. There maybe is an in between. I feel like I kind of come in between. But I was watching a couple of interviews with some podcasters and whatnot, and they're like, I've watched it 12 times and I keep getting new things every time I watch it. And I was just kind of like, is that what this movie is, or is it just a guy's commentary on Hollywood from inside Hollywood? It's kind of hard for me to figure it out. I did enjoy it while I was watching it, I suppose, but I'll save that for the actual review itself.
I don't think it's as much about a guy inside Hollywood commenting on Hollywood, because I feel like this guy's an outsider the whole time. Mm-hmm. And I think that our writer, David Robert Mitchell, is actually from Clawson, Michigan, right near me. And this film is very much him trying to like come to terms with his life in LA now. And he might be a lot like the main character, feeling like an outsider all the time in LA when he is living there and in it now, basically. And I guess figuring out like, oh, Los Angeles, like I've been dreaming of being here my whole life, and there's actually just like a lot of weird fucked up shit going on here, and it's actually not this thing that I saw in these Hollywood movies in the 1950s. It's actually a lot more weird, like twisted and demented here than I ever thought. Like private parties where you have to eat a cookie full of drugs before you can get inside the party. Yeah, or the escort service that we see, which the starlet's quite literally like the starlet escort service. Like you can't tell me it's all on the nose. It's all very much right there for you to see. Yeah. But then it's trying to give you these red herrings. So is it actually about something, or is it just a self-aware collection of riddles and red herrings? I guess that's the question we're asking here. Our main character, though, just really quick. Please, go ahead. He tries to say, like, I always thought I was going to make something meaningful or wonderful one day, and maybe not all of us are meant for that, basically. And I think that is also what our director is coming to terms with. It's like maybe everything I've made or am going to make actually won't live on forever or like change the world or whatever. Maybe Andrew Garfield's asking that question too. Like maybe he's like, it's okay if I am not always remembered as the best Spider-Man or whatever it may be, you know.
The hit or miss idea, I think it's a deceptively large question, because I think it very much comes down to what the individual viewer feels about their life, whether or not they feel trapped, whether or not they're looking for an escape, or whether or not they're perfectly content and satisfied with their lives. And I think somebody who is content and satisfied with the direction that their life has taken is not going to get this film and is not going to connect to it, because this idea of chasing the unchaseable, chasing the unfindable isn't really going to compute in somebody who thinks that way. I think it brings up a discussion of, determinism versus self-realization and living your own life. These are a group of people who don't want to accept to any degree that their life is what it is and they need to find a way to be happy with it. They can't accept that their life is what it is, so they're going to go searching for the other meaning. So the hit or miss, I think that is a very personal question, and I think it could be explored for hours on its own.
I think that for me, sometimes I feel like these films that are very purposefully ambiguous, or the ones that are, I guess, on their surface begging you to look deeper or to kind of create your own meaning, I find that those can be some of the most divisive films, because I think there is a contingent of people who don't want to admit maybe that they don't get it. Right. And so it's like, well, I kind of ride this train because, I don't want to seem like the person who doesn't understand this really lofty, ambitious film. I keep thinking about it in terms of a lot of other films that I've watched, and it is really different than anything that I've watched recently. So I think in that way, too, when there is something that hasn't been seen for a while or is kind of new, it can be very divisive in that way as well. So I do think, like Becky said, it's a deceptively big question, but I see those maybe being the two biggest contributors to why it would be so divisive.
So after I watched this, I actually messaged Kevin. And I said, I don't think this is a film Dan's going to like. And I actually think I've pinned down the kind of films you don't like. And I don't think you like ambiguous films. And I don't think you like films where the style outshines the substance of the film. Which is
completely, you are completely right.
And a lot of
things I can relate
films,
to.
sadly, you've signed up for this podcast, so sorry about it. But a lot of A24 films have a lot of style, and the substance doesn't always match the style. But their A24 films are at their best when the substance and the style match. But maybe that's why I think a lot of people, or 50-50 people, don't like this film, is because there's some people that just really enjoy the style of this film and the filmmaking aspects of it. And I like LA films too. I really like Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. And I guess like this is in LA, I liked Climax because that's a very stylized film. And I can enjoy like when a director is taking me on this like stylish ride. And at the first like at least 50% of the film, I'm like, this really feels like a modern day Hitchcock film. And I love Hitchcock too. And so that, I don't know, it made me happy to see that somebody was at least like doing a good job of trying to make a modern day Hitchcock film. But then it did get a little bit self-indulgent for sure. So
this comes part, Eric, where you can use the quote where I don't fucking like movies, because for me, I've seen so little of these classic films that I have no real comparison to. This is all, on the surface, like they're for the taking, but I, for me personally, I've just never, don't get it, I guess. But it is what it is.
And I'm kind of there with you, Kevin. Like I don't have the film knowledge, honestly. Ask me about any of the films that you guys reference. Ask me if I've seen them, and I might say yes twice. Okay? So I don't come in with a bit of the background. And unfortunately, and I do really now being a part of this podcast, unfortunately don't have the artistic appreciation that goes into filmmaking that I think you do. And I do think that colors my reviews and my perceptions of films quite a bit.
I think, Eric, you kind of nailed it on the head for me. And now that you've gotten to know this just through these first few episodes that we've done together, I like things that are grounded and that I can relate to. And I find, the pretentiousness and that self-indulgence. I said to Becky at one point during the movie, I was like, it's so up its own butt. And that kind of pisses me off because
a couple of times.
Yeah, a couple of times, because I just feel like as part of the movie going public, I want something that I can feel some drive, some motivation, some connection to. So yeah, stylize it for sure. I mean, I love great camera work. I love good lighting and the use of sound. And I think it's amazing when it helps to drive the narrative. But when that's all that you have, it's like, I don't know, you can appreciate it for a point. But, I think anybody with a pretty good artistic mind and a couple $1 million budget can get up there and make something that looks really pretty. But if the story doesn't carry and there isn't payoff, then what's the point, right? Like art for art's sake, okay, sure, that's MGM's whole thing, right? There is an appreciation of that. I'm not saying that those things are useless. It's just, it has to come together. There has to be some, uniting force there, because if it's all style over substance, then there's just no point for me.
For sure.
Fair enough.
I mean, I did see a film the other year that it was about a Cowboys fan who was from Pennsylvania that lived in Bolivia, and so I got to recommend that one to you.
Whoa!
You said you only like films that you can relate to, so I'll have to find the name of that one for you.
Slice of my own life.
Yeah, slice of life.
Slice of
All
my
right.
life. Yeah.
Before we
please.
get to our final reviews, this is the opportunity that we have to talk about anything we have not discussed. Eric, what do you think about the sound design? Anything you want to ride home about the way they kind of used some of the soundtrack takes and just the sound design in general?
I love Disasterpiece. That it's the same people. I think it's how many people are in the band, or is it just one DJ?
That's a good question. Let's take a
Oh
look.
no, it's just one guy. Okay,
Yeah, it's just
Richard
one guy,
Vreeland
yeah.
is Disasterpiece, and he did It Follows, which is like one of my favorite like film soundtracks of all time. Great like 80s feeling horror soundtrack. This one, it wasn't as evident, his score in here, like at parts it, I noticed it, but I really like the old kind of flower power LA music in here too. And I like the indie LA music that they put in here. Like, the band, God, what was their name again? Jesus and...
Jesus and the Vampires, is that what it was? Or
Yeah,
something like
yeah.
that?
Dracula Brides or something like that.
Yeah, and I'm like, this is like a way too hipster LA band that you would see. And I loved the fact that he ended up beating up the lead singer, like beating him up in the bathroom while he was taking a shit. And
What was with
he was
his
like, "You didn't write
turds,
any of
man?"
your own
Yeah,
music. You don't know this fucking song."
Yeah.
And that made me laugh a lot.
The turds, the scene starting out with the plopping turds. I was like, all right,
Dude,
what's
how much
going-
corn did that guy eat? Is his entire diet corn?
I mean, that you guys laugh more at the poop humor, I guess, but I really laughed at the fact he didn't even know like who wrote the songs, and the fact that he didn't write his own hits, and and then Sam was just pissed off about that too, and because it is like it's him realizing, oh shit, like this hit new band, this guy isn't actually that much of an artist. He wrote all these shitty songs, and then some rich asshole said like, oh, these people have the look. They have the look that I can make money off of, and
that's
here's
the
songs
story.
to
Yeah.
like make money off of.
And I guess that's the reality in a lot of music industry, and I guess that's part of the
Well,
story
yeah,
there
like
too,
Drake.
right?
Yep.
Oy, 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 oy.
I mean,
Anything else you
even,
guys want?
like, if
Go
I
ahead, Becky.
take it to a completely different genre, country music too. The king of country has long and forever been George Strait for an incredibly long time, and he does not write a single one of his songs. He has his set group of songwriters, but he does not write. And I think the first time that I realized that, it did kind of crush my soul a little bit, because I love the man.
Elton John comes to mind, right? He doesn't write his music.
Yeah, and it
Johnny
takes,
Cash
it
does
takes that
write a lot of
sparkle
his
out.
music, though, doesn't he? And his wife with him.
Don't start the debate on if he is country or
and
rock,
all
because
of-
that is a heated debate.
And all of Bob Dylan's songs are better when they're not sung by Bob Dylan.
He's outlaw
No,
country. That's what I think. But-
I would agree. I would agree that, though, Eric, I did like the music. I thought that the sound design was really good. I thought that it did drive a lot of things. It really helped set the tone in certain scenes. Like the dancing scene to REM at one point was pretty cool. And I liked the cinematography. I think those two things for me did help kind of save it. I liked a lot of the camera work. Although there was that one part where they were like out on the balcony, and he met the woman who was in the billboards. I guess maybe she had been an ex-girlfriend or something. It seemed like they had been acquainted before, but I was like, this looks like it was filmed with a GoPro. Like the angle was so ridiculously wide and so like fishbowled that
And shaking.
shaking. Yeah. So I didn't like that cinematography wise, but a lot of the like movement shots, and there was a part where they were like going through some shelving that was pretty cool. And then they kind of came around quickly. So I like some of those things. But yeah, overall, those would probably be the ones that I'd point out.
Okay, just real quick, I just looked up because I thought Richard Vreeland or Disasterpiece was the old guy, like, on the piano. That was actually Topher Grace. Topher Grace was the old guy and all the makeup and everything.
I knew it wasn't
playing
an
the
old
piano.
person. That's the only thing I knew. I was like, that's a man in an old costume. It's not an actual old person. But
Yeah, I just looked it up. It's Topher
Speaking
Grace.
of Topher Grace, I didn't even realize it was Topher Grace when it was Topher Grace. Like his whole beard and everything, I wasn't paying that close attention to him because, he's paying some off-putting force. He was kind of a gross dude. But coming to find out afterwards, like it's Topher Grace with a beard. It's like, oh, all right.
Yeah. Well, okay, and then I do want to talk about the one scene where he took a drone and flew it over to that girl's house. She undressed and she started crying. And that's where I actually think our writer-director was somewhat aware of how much of a creep these people are and how these women that are objectified so much, specifically in LA, they get really sad. They're sad with how this industry in town, like, objectifies them for $1. And these two guys, obviously, in that scene are objectifying the shit out of her.
Drinking beers, just checking out and being creepers.
And she just, like, starts crying almost as if she, like, knows it. And it's a pretty sad scene.
It is, absolutely. Yeah. The tonality of it is very interesting. I think we talked about this earlier. Becky had talked about, like, shifting from these heavy scenes to these then lighthearted scenes, to the violent scenes, to the musical scenes. And it is all on top of each other a lot time, and the violent scenes do kind of feel a little bit out of place compared to the rest, but I guess they are just going for a little bit.
The irony of Sam hating homeless people when he himself is about to be homeless. And he himself is spying on everybody and is a creep looking in, wishing he had a more glamorous lifestyle. Like, that also was
he was self-describing himself, for sure.
Our writer-director knows that he's writing, like, kind of a shithead, and that he obviously is a big hypocrite, too.
So, let's talk about the ending, then. Does Sam get a happy ending? Does scoring with the old lady and seemingly avoiding being evicted, is that his happy ending? Is he telling us as a viewer that he's just going to continue, or, you know, what was it? Was it satisfying? Was it confusing? Potentially open-ended? Let's talk about the ending. Becky, you first.
For the film, the ending was exactly what it needed to be, because the way that I saw it, I do assume that he was getting evicted. That's what I took from the police officer and the landlord going into the apartment as he's watching from the older woman's balcony. But I don't think that it mattered anymore, because I think it was kind of his realization point of life is pointless. And so he wasn't trying to fight to stay anymore. And I think it did a good job of showcasing that pointlessness of it. Not saying that I particularly enjoyed it, but I do think, given everything that this film was trying to say, I think the ending of just sitting back and watching his life move on from a distance without actually having a hand in what was happening in the end, I think that was the way that the film needed to end for the director to make the point that he was trying to make, at least from what I see. And that point being that there just is no point.
All right. Dan, talk about the ending.
I mean, the whole film fell flat for me, and the ending really. So, I mean, I get the ambiguity. I understand that's what they were going for. Again, not my kind of movie. So it really fell flat. I felt like there was no payoff. The whole film felt kind of pointless in that it was sort of self-indulgent the whole way. It was challenging you to, I guess, think about things, but then giving you so much to think about that in the end there was nothing to think about. So, yeah, by the end, it all seemed like noise to me. I mean, I was curious what the parrot was actually saying, and I wish that we would have found out, but I get that was a clever way. I guess he was something I didn't mention before. He was interested in the backmasking, the music thing, and like listening to records backwards. So maybe the parrot was some kind of cryptic thing there too. But yeah, I don't know. It just. And then, like, the landlord being like, oh, my God, he painted on the fucking wall. Like, oh, my God. It was just like...
I actually thought the landlord was hilarious, though. But
Yeah, he was. He was actually... He was, like, really one of the only funny parts in a movie that apparently tried to have, other than just ironic humor, actually tried to have humor. But that fell flat for me pretty much the whole time. So, get back to the ending. Yeah, it was just... It just puttered to an end, which I felt like the whole movie just puttered through the entire story. So it was a fitting ending in that way for me.
All right, Eric, same thing.
Was that your putter? That was a good sound of putter.
Yeah.
I think the ending was him leaving all of his past, like, his pop culture obsessions behind, realizing, like, well, I like these things at one point, but I can leave them behind now. I know that, they were probably kind of hollow or shallow, and that I don't need to put too much meaning into them. And that was him just being like, I I don't need all of those things in that room anymore. And if you noticed, the woman he's with, she like doesn't have much in her house besides birds, which I think is kind of interesting. There's no pop culture references in there or anything. And then the other thing that I think kind of awoke him to leaving like kind of his obsessions behind is when Sarah tells him, I'm down here, so I might as well make the best of it. Like after she realizes like, yeah, I am kind of just stuck in this cement hole. Maybe I don't actually believe I'm going to ascend to some higher plane, but she says like, well, I might as well make the best of it. And I think that's actually what our main character does at the end. He like looks around. He's like, okay, I'm kicked out of my apartment. I moved to LA and I might not make anything of meaning or amazing in my life, but I'm here, so I might as well make the best of it. And I think that is what the film was trying to say in the end. Is that's what our character kind of finds, I guess, with a catharsis. But then also there a little darkness behind it because of the music that comes in at the very end, and he looks a bit demented as he's smoking.
He does look a little bit.
Is he the dog killer? Is he going to go on killing dogs? I don't know. I didn't actually believe he was the dog killer, but I think our director tried to leave that a bit open-ended too.
No, I was just gonna say, I think an important piece that we haven't really touched on at all is the theme of how wealth is portrayed and the power behind wealth, aside from the fact that it's the rich white man who created all the pop culture. But we didn't really talk about it in terms of they're entombing themselves with 3 women, all their riches, and all the extravagant food. And I think that actually plays a big role into this ending when we see Andrew Garfield just kind of standing back creepily or satisfied. I'm not sure how I feel about his body language with it, but I think it's pretty poignant that this scene comes after he has pulled back the curtain to how the world works. And he has gotten a firsthand look into how does the world work. These rich white people who have controlled our society then go and disappear with all their riches and wealth. They take it with them. They're not giving it back to the society that they are controlling. And I think to a degree that has to cause a fair amount of disillusionment with your world when you pull that curtain back and you really see who the puppet masters are and who's controlling it. And I think he hit a moment of acceptance that was the way the world is. So why bother trying to dig deeper? Why try to keep going? Just let it be what it's going to be.
So I think the conversation that he has with Sarah when she's in the bunker on the phone, and it's pretty much the entire climax for me. Is like, basically like, well, I guess I better make the best of the situation, right? And he just goes, yeah, me too. Or something along those lines. Like, yeah, her situation is she's buried alive and is going to slowly suffocate to death with a rich dude. And now he's going to maybe get buried alive by the LA culture and the poverty cycle and being homeless and, getting evicted and the death of his dream.
Or does he go on to live with the bird lady?
Right, exactly. And that's the other question. And then I think that's my answer is that's what he does. That he decides that because everything is pointless and meaningless and he's going to make the best of his situation, that next best thing is to survive, and that's to use his charismatic whatever and sex addiction to go ahead and get himself a new sugar mama and live across the way from his evicted apartment, which I just think would be hilarious.
And what I think a lot of people that move to LA, they think it's giving up, like moving back home is just giving up, like moving back in with your family. And you failed,
especially a family that loves him so much. Like his mom is the sweetest character ever. Yeah, you're right. I would agree with you, Eric.
Yeah, you can move back home and just do something else. I mean, I guess at that point he's probably invested a lot into trying to make it in the LA industry, whether that be film or music, because he did have amps in his apartment too. I think he was trying to make it an either or. Right. But if he had a little more self-awareness, I think he would have just moved back home with his mom. But he doesn't. So. Yeah. All
right, it's time for reviews. So we are going to go ahead and give this bad boy a rundown review style for our listeners. We review every A24 film with an A through F24, A being the best, F being the worst, and pluses and minuses in there. So for this one, I want us to make sure we're talking about kind of, if we're going to recommend this for other folks, kind of, just our general review style. Dan, you're up first. Because I know what you're going to say, and I want to hear it all so we can all ramp a little bit up afterwards. We'll start at the bottom, and we'll make our way up.
Okay, yeah, fair enough. I don't know that I've gone first in the...
And
I mean, when I hosted a couple of weeks ago, I skipped over you completely. So,
not intentional.
See. So I found this film to be very challenging. I found it challenging tonally. I found it challenging in its grandiosity. Grandiosity, and its bigness, bigly. It's very bigly. It was a very bigly film. Yeah, it was a very bigly film. Huge, as they might say. Yeah. Yes, yes, yeah. Wow, that's an old one. That was first term. Yeah. I found it to be confused. I think it was trying to be too much. I found it to be probably a half an hour to 40 minutes too long. I thought that it was kind of trite. I think it was self-indulgent. And overall, I didn't like it very much. I don't know that I would recommend it. Oh, I don't know that I would not recommend it, because the oddity of it, I think, is kind of worth at least feeling out, because there are a lot of people clearly that really like the film and that get these deeper meanings from it. I think for me to go through all that trouble and have all of this to then be like, actually, it's just nihilism, it just seemed like a waste of time. I think there was really no payoff, and I don't feel any better having watched it. So for all of those reasons, as they might say on the Shark Tank, I'm out. I cannot invest in this movie. So definitely not the worst thing I've ever watched, and I appreciate the vision. I think it's a hard theme to take on, and I think they tried to just pack every single thing, as my mom used to call it, a bliffy, 2 pounds of shit in a 1 pound bag. Rest in peace, Eileen. So, I felt like it was a bit of a bliffy of a movie. So I'm going to go with a solid D24. I think there was redeeming qualities. I said I like the music. I like the cinematography. And I think, Andrew Garfield played the role well, whether I really liked the role or not. I think he did play it pretty well. So definitely not quite an F, but I'm just going to give it a good solid D, D24 from me.
All right, let's see if your other half has a differing opinion. Becky, you're sliding in next.
So I'm going to start this by saying this is the first A24 film that I fell asleep during for about maybe 10 or 15 minutes. Now, I have not, through my discussion today, I've focused more on the themes that I felt like were attempted to be tackled throughout the film, and that's because I could not connect to the movie itself at all. The jumps were too much for me. There was too much happening at one time. I am someone who does truly love to think, but if you give me 70 things to think about in 5 minutes, you're going to overwhelm me. And that's how I felt during this movie. I felt overwhelmed throughout it. And I don't know that I have anybody in my life that I would recommend this movie to. I did not like the movie at all. I think what is being pointed out is an important discussion to have. I think the idea of what does life mean is an internal and universal discussion. I think the way that women are viewed, especially in Los Angeles, especially in Hollywood, or any sort of independent entertainment industry, I think that is a discussion that needs to be had, and it's worth showcasing through film. But while those themes are important to me, while those discussions are important to me, this movie is absolutely an F24 for me. If I have not fallen asleep through any A24 movie, and that's a pretty big thing for me. I often fall asleep during movies here and there.
It's true.
But the fact that this one lost me so quickly and strongly enough that I turned on my side, held my dog, and closed my eyes for 10 minutes, opened my eyes and realized I didn't miss anything. He's still searching for answers. on top of all of that, giving me a film that in my eyes is telling me life is pointless, so stop trying because it's going to be what it's going to be. But go search for these answers anyway because that's what life is. That is not what life is for me. Life for me is making my decisions and reacting to whatever comes after them, whether it's good, whether it's bad, but making my path, not through some unknown mystery that I'm trying to figure out, but based on what I want out of my own life. And I know myself well enough to know what I want out of my life. And I am very happy with the way that my life has turned out, despite all the shit that I have been through at various points, like everybody has. So I cannot recommend this film. I have no qualms about leaving this at an F24.
All right. Well, I'm going to go next then. Eric had a very good point, I feel like, about talking about A24, knowing kind of what style of A24 films going into watching a film, especially about art over substance and some of those things. I truly, while watching this film, did come away enjoying my time, meaning that there was enough oddity, enough twists that made me kind of go, like Becky had mentioned, what the fuck is happening? But maybe in a good way, I guess, for me, because it kind of kept me wondering what was going to happen next. Even if it was a simple hunt for nothing, it was at least engaging enough and pretty enough for me that I found myself, enjoying my time while watching the film. I think I've come away a little bit less of a fan as we're discussing it, but for the most part, I'm going to stick with kind of how my gut reaction was to the cinematography, to the art style, to Garfield's performance, to kind of the overarching way that it approached this ridiculousness of Hollywood. I didn't hate it. Now, I didn't come away viewing it as, one of the best things I've ever seen. It certainly isn't on any Mount Rushmores or any pantheons of any sort of film for me. But I definitely found that I enjoyed watching it. Was it a little long? Yeah. I don't like anything over 2 hours, let alone 220. We always talk about that perfect 90-minute film sometimes. This one definitely was not that. For all those reasons, and it does get a bit of a downturn too, just from kind of the ham-fistedness of just being like, this is the Hollywood story and we're going to tell it this way. I don't know. It was fine. I liked it. It was good enough for while I was watching it. So I guess I'm trying to describe a C24 film. It's not like my favorite thing. I didn't hate it. It's kind of really just right down the middle. As far as recommendations, if you're on the completion path, you have to watch it. Like if you have to finish A24, you have to watch it. I think it's telling that A24 did not give this film a theatrical release at all. It went straight to DVD, straight to release. So they probably didn't, they were like everybody else who 50-50. They're like, yeah, I like it. Maybe I don't like it. So that's me. C24. Eric, take us home.
Before I started this podcast and where we're at now, I think actually my whole lens through which I watch film has changed a lot. I think I used to be much more into trying to find the substance of film and wondering exactly what this film is trying to say to me. And now I want to watch films and be in a completely different space than I live in. I want to get a window into another life and try to disconnect from my own life and figure out what is this world that it's putting me in? Am I getting a good peek into a world that I'm not normally used to? And I feel like a film is a form of escapism. And this film, I think, gave me a great escape, and it gave me this kind of look into the seedy LA underbelly. And while it did that, it was very well shot, well lit. And that's the other thing is when I started this podcast, I also started watching, with my wife. And, she's not part of this podcast anymore, but we still watch these films together. And she's a graphic designer. And I also look at things through the lens of a graphic designer, too. And I'm looking at the design of this film and how wonderfully designed everything is. Again, I still think films need to say something overall. I guess I just really, really appreciate sometimes how a film gets made and what it looks like throughout the whole journey. And that's not going to be the reason why I give it this great grade in the end. I do think I took a little bit more away from it in the end. I think him saying I'm down here, so I might as well make the best of it. And also our writer-director telling people, like all these conspiracy theorists, that maybe your conspiracies don't actually mean that much. And I actually think that's a very good message to people, especially younger men, to stop going down these conspiracy rabbit holes. I actually think that's like a valid, good point to make to these people. Since watching The Studio with Seth Rogen recently, I've grown a bigger appreciation for LA and how films get made. And this film is kind of a big ode and homage to LA and Hollywood. And I really like that, actually. I don't think it's going to get in the A category for me, because I do wish that it was chopped down a bit, like half hour, and I think it was a little too self-indulgent. But I really do love the style of this film. I love Andrew Garfield. I love, I actually kind of like the writing of this film too, and like the seedy world that it put me in. And I don't think we're supposed to like the main character, but I think that he's supposed to represent like this kind of shithead slacker that is probably very common in LA, a very common character that we get a short window into while we're watching this film. So I think I'm going to give it a B, just a solid B. It's not going to get in the A category, but yeah, it falls below climax for me, probably a little bit below Under the Skin, around there. I think I give High West a B, so that sounds about right to me.
I think this is going to be very
Slow
interesting
West,
moving forward, how we either come together or stay apart on some of these films. And that's the point of doing a movie review. To our listeners out there, what do you think this film should get? Drop a comment, drop a review, give us a subscription, reach out to our socials. We're very curious where you fall on this Under the Silver Lake. Thank you for listening. It has been fun, and we will see you in the next one. Bye-bye.
You ask me if there'll come a time when I grow tired of you. Never my love, never my love. You wonder if this heart of mine will lose its desire for you. Never my love, never my love. What makes you think love will end when you know that my whole life depends on you? Da, 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 da. Never my love, never my love. You say you fear I'll change my mind. I won't require you.
A24.